Welcome to the Leaders in Payments podcast, where we talk to C-level leaders from across the payments landscape. We'll be discussing the products and services that impact the payment space today, as well as trends and predictions for the future of payments. We will also hear stories from our guests about their journeys to the top.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Women Leaders in Payments Month episode. Today, I'm honored to have as our special guest, Ann Berkmeier, the Chief Administrative Officer at Dash Solutions. So, Ann, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's start with a little icebreaker. So, if you could instantly become an expert in one non-work related skill or hobby, what would it be and why?
100%, I would be a DJ. I love music. I love to dance. I love the energy of a room full of people, having fun. I love curating an atmosphere, creating a vibe, and I always think about what people need next. So I've never done that professionally, done it a lot at my house, but definitely a DJ.
I love this question because every single person that I've interviewed has a different answer. So it's so fun to hear the different answers. All right, well, let's talk about your background and career journey a little bit. So give us a quick snapshot of your background, maybe where you grew up, what you studied, what led you into the world of payments.
So I grew up in Alabama, like you. Also, that's where Dash is based. So I, as a child, was very curious about how things worked. For a long time, I really wanted to be an architect. And as the internet started becoming part of everyday life, I became super fascinated with how websites, digital experiences were all built at the intersection of people and technology. And that led me to study computer science. I went to Vanderbilt University. And what I really loved about computer science was not the coding. I was not a great coder, but I loved the logic. I loved the patterns. I loved solving complex problems and how all the pieces really fit together. I started my career at Accenture. I worked on systems migrations for a very large retail bank. And that's where I realized that I was not only interested in technology, but I was also interested in how companies change. And so from there, I moved on to New York. I worked at UBS for about a decade. I led global transformation programs. I worked in technology, operations, risk, finance. And that was a truly amazing experience. But over time, I realized that really what I wanted to do was often help build and really redesign companies so that they could scale. And so that's what ultimately drew me to fintech. And I'm our Chief Administrative Officer at Dash today. And I work at the intersection of people, AI, and our business strategy. So I help translate that strategy into execution and ultimately value. And I absolutely love it. It's the perfect place for me.
Okay, great. Was there a person or an opportunity or maybe even an unexpected moment that helped you shape the direction of your career?
So I'd say my career has probably been shaped by multiple leaders and multiple companies too that consistently trusted me with problems that were a lot bigger than my title. Those problems and assignments were really comfortable. They were often things that had complex teams, complex projects, complex situations, and there was never really a clear playbook. Looking back on those, that's where I really grew the most. So I love the whole idea of bringing clarity to complexity. I love helping organizations drive change, drive transformations, and I love solving challenging problems and creating great opportunities for growth. It's also kind of changed how I think about leadership. For me, as I look back on what I learned during my career, I also think that one of the greatest gifts that a leader can give to someone is really that chance to do something that they're not quite ready for. That's how confidence is built, and that's something that I try to do and give others a chance to do as well.
You told us about your role a little bit already. So what part of your work are you most excited about right now?
We are hyper-focused on growth. And so what excites me most about Dash is really helping us scale in a very thoughtful way. I work with people, AI enablement, and with our strategic initiatives. And I don't really think about those as separate responsibilities. I see them as super connected. And I also think that it's very important that folks recognize, and that I certainly recognize, right, that companies don't scale by accident. They scale by design. And when we think about growth, it isn't simply about hiring more people or adding more technology. You have to be very intentional about how those teams work together and very thoughtful about scaling. It's important to know how decisions get made and then what capabilities the business needs next to grow even further. That's really the part that I love.
Well, let's pivot and talk a little bit about leadership and perspective. So this year's theme is the future is human. When you hear that phrase, what does it mean to you as a leader in payments?
So I love this theme because to me, the future is really about people and relationships. And it really has to be. Technology, AI, automation, that's all going to continue to evolve. We're going to see payments in general become faster, smarter, more seamless. But our business is still built on our trust, relationships, and the value that we create for others. Because if you think about every transaction, behind every transaction, there's a person, a family, or a business that's really dependent upon that payment arriving accurately, securely, and on time. And the human need is what gives our technology its purpose. So while we think about the future being powered by AI and automation, it's ultimately defined by the relationships that we build and the value we create for others.
As you mentioned, payments is becoming more digital, it's more embedded, it's becoming more intelligent. What do you think leaders need to keep front and center as this industry keeps evolving?
Without a doubt, experience. So the client and customer experience. And this ties really well to Dash's mission statement. So our mission is to make payments mean more. And that's for businesses and the people that we pay. And that means looking beyond the payment and whether the transaction actually worked, but also looking at the experience and asking, was it simple? Was it secure? Was it reliable? Was it valuable to both sides of that transaction? And so as our technology continues to advance, we know that companies are going to need to continue adapting. And so as I think about AI particularly, the ones that will win with AI aren't necessarily going to be the ones that have the most solutions that are in place leveraging AI, but they're going to be the ones that best combine AI with a human touch to remove friction, make better decisions, and then create an overall better experience for everybody involved.
Well, what is something that you've learned about leadership that you wish you had understood maybe earlier in your career?
My favorite leadership philosophy or mantra is everyone wants to be led. I think it's such an empowering thought, and it truly means everyone, right? Junior employees, experienced managers, executives, CEOs. People want to understand a problem well. They want to understand an opportunity. They want to know why it matters. They want to know where they're going. They want to know how they can help. When I was early on in my career, I thought my job was kind of to solve every problem and to know all the answers. But today, it's very clear, right? My role is to understand the problem, frame it in terms people can understand, and design a way forward and get things moving. My second favorite leadership principle is really don't let perfection get in the way of progress. I think that's very important, particularly in a fast-moving environment like payments. You need to move fast, you need to learn, adjust, and you need to keep moving.
All right, well, let's talk about the human side of payments. And you kind of mentioned this behind every payment or transaction or disbursement is a person, a business, a specific need. How do you think about the human side of payments in the work that you do?
Well, it's easy to focus on the technology and on the speed, but a payment's usually something that's very important to somebody. So it could be a paycheck supporting a family, it could be a healthcare reimbursement, or it could be an employee being recognized for great performance at the office. So the human side of payments to me is just remembering that they aren't simply transactions. They're moments that matter. And our responsibility, particularly at Dash, is to curate that experience around the payment and make those moments simple and trustworthy and reliable.
Okay, you mentioned the word trust a couple of times, and it's obviously a critical part of payments and fintech. So how do you think companies can build and maintain trust as this industry just becomes more and more automated and technology driven?
Yeah, it's a huge component. It's always been a foundation of payments. It's becoming even more important with our increase in automation and usage of AI. And folks still need a degree of confidence. And it means that most companies have to design for more than speed and efficiency. And so they're going to need to be designing for security, for transparency, for also reliability and accountability. I think there's a people component to it, though, outside of technology. When something doesn't go as planned, trust is built by how quickly you can communicate, take ownership, and make things right. And so while technology can create the confidence and the repeatability, people create the trust. And so I do believe the strongest companies are very intentional about them. We're certainly positioned in that space at Dash.
Well, I often talk about this is that payments is expected to work. It works most of the time, 99% of the time, something happens that's supposed to happen. But that 1%, right, is always the challenge for us as an industry. And I think, as you mentioned, like that's where trust can really come into the equation.
Absolutely.
What do you think is one trend or maybe change in payments that you believe will have the biggest impact on people and businesses over the next couple of years?
While it extends a little bit beyond payments, the biggest trend is AI, but it's not for the reason most people think. I don't think AI's biggest impact is going to be helping us be more productive, right? Writing the emails faster, automating individual tasks. I think that its biggest impact is the opportunity that it gives all of us as leaders in payments to rethink how we operate. it gives us the opportunity to step back and say, if we were designing the company today, knowing AI exists, would we build it the same way? And I don't think there are many leaders out there that would answer yes about their company. So I think it's really important that we use this as an opportunity to rethink and redesign. I think the companies that layer AI into existing processes are going to see incremental gains, while the ones that truly step back and redesign around AI are going to create entirely new levels of speed and innovation. Again, going back to our earlier point, companies don't scale by accident, they scale by design. And so this is, in my opinion, a once-in-a-generation opportunity to really redesign and rethink how companies work so people can spend more time doing what only people can do, which is creating experiences, building trust.
When we talk about AI, and I love the way you framed that because I haven't heard that a lot, is if you rebuilt your company today, would you do it differently knowing what you know about AI? That's very interesting. Companies have implemented AI, let's say, for customer service and things like that. What is your thought on that from a business perspective? Because we've had some that have launched it and then pulled back because it didn't reach the results they expected. Do you think that's just an overzealous company who just wants to say they do things in AI? Or what are your thoughts on the practical implementation of it?
Yeah, there are two aspects of it. I strongly believe that AI is something that needs to be built out as a capability within our teams from a people standpoint. I think the secondary component of it is there's certainly tooling and different solutions that AI can be leveraged in to make them more efficient. At Dash, we're really taking the people and AI enablement initiatives to be very serious and very core to our business model. We have, over the course of the past year, really ingrained it into our teams. Everyone has at least one large language model that is available to them just for general productivity use cases. But we are now dipping into the automation of workflows for all the different capabilities and functions within each team. And so we're really trying to ensure that each department rises at the same kind of water level as we're going through this. But it's certainly something that we see as a core capability and also one that we want to really invest in. And so we are being very pragmatic, ensuring as we go undertake new initiatives where we do expect to see efficiency gains, perhaps in our call center. We are being very thoughtful about the way that we do those. We're ensuring that we've got kind of a clear way forward, a good kind of understanding of the return on investment for those initiatives, and that we're really prioritizing them where they can make the most business impact. We love things that drive productivity. We love things that are able to drive cost savings, but we love things even more that are able to drive innovation and better experiences for our clients, partners, and our employees.
Well, let's pivot a little bit and talk about mentorship and impact. So who has influenced you along the way, whether it's directly or indirectly, and what did you learn from them?
So I have been super lucky. I have always had great leaders. I think that may be an anomaly, but I feel very privileged. I've had leaders in consulting that really taught me the basics of how to break down complex problems and solve them. I've had leaders in banking that taught me how to operate at a very formal scale. And I've had leaders in fintech that taught me how quickly great companies need to evolve and change. And so every single one of those experiences, every single one of those leaders gave me a different perspective. And they've all kind of shaped the way that I approach leadership too. The leaders that I admire most are the ones who have a clear vision. They can bring people together around a common goal. They can simplify complexity, and they can offer support and encouragement when things often feel uncertain. So that's had the biggest influence on me. And it's definitely the kind of leader that I want to be.
Follow-on question. You've talked about these leaders, which, a lot of ways is mentorship. So just curious, what are your thoughts on mentorship? And maybe you've worked obviously at some very large companies, like formal mentorship programs versus more, you got to take it on your own to form your own network and your own mentorship programs. So just your thoughts on mentorship as a whole.
All of the above. We at Dash actually run a formal mentorship program, but we also encourage our teams to really look for other relationships outside of that formal mentorship program. So I certainly have benefited in the past from both formal and informal, both being the mentor and the mentee. Second to that, I would say a career coach is always a wonderful addition to a mentorship relationship as well.
What advice would you give to the next generation of women that are entering payments and fintech?
Stay curious. Always my number one. I'd also say that some of the most valuable opportunities in my career weren't things that I expected or things that I planned. And so I'd say don't ever be afraid to raise your hand for a new opportunity or a new challenge. Something that's outside your job description, something that's outside your comfort zone. And then the most important thing is never, ever wait until you feel completely ready. Growth is almost always something that comes from confidence. So you can have all the preparation in the world, but I really do believe we need to just get going.
There's been studies that have shown that women are less likely to ask or raise their hand than men. So just curious your thoughts on that. How do you suggest they get out of their comfort zone?
I think it's a constant conversation of showing an interest, showing a genuine curiosity, also bringing and showcasing the skills you bring to the table. I, from time to time, have represented myself and said, well, here are the things that I've done in my past experience that I think could be valuable and useful for this particular role or opportunity, or even just project. So I really do think that we all need to remind ourselves of the wealth of experience that we bring and have that at the ready so that when opportunities or problems or challenges that need a clear leader, when those opportunities arise, you have a good and quick answer for it. You can represent yourself well.
Well, let's wrap up the show with one kind of final fun question. So what is one app or podcast or book, maybe TV show or hobby that is a different way or a favorite way of yours to unwind that maybe gives us a glimpse of who you are outside of work?
Other than me wanting to be a DJ?
Which is a great one, by the way.
Honestly, it's spending time with my family and friends at Lake Martin. It's a beautiful lake here in Alabama, and we love being on and near the water. My kids love tubing. They love wake surfing and wakeboarding, and we love hosting and entertaining. And so I genuinely love bringing people together. And I think that's probably a common theme. So whether it's work or in my personal life, I love bringing people together, doing great and fun things, and creating experiences that people will remember.
That's a great way to wrap up the show. I know your time's very valuable, so I really appreciate you being here today. So again, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Greg.
And to all you listeners out there, I thank you for your time as well. And until the next story.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Leaders in Payments podcast. Make sure you visit our website at leadersinpayments.com, where you can subscribe to the show and where you'll find our show notes. If you enjoyed listening, please share on your social channels as well.